Hey there, all you friends, true believers, and newcomers alike. It's Superfly Comics Guy, and I'm bringing you another review. If you're a Harley fan, if you're a Joker fan, or just a Batman fan in general, this is a must-read. Harleen by Stjepan Sejic. We'll be going through the cover, the spine, the contents collected, the build quality, and a flip-through where I can share some of my thoughts, opinions, and recommendations on the book. So if you enjoyed the video at any point, you know how to show it, and feel free to leave your own thoughts down in the comments below. And before we get started, I do want to say thank you guys so much for the support on the Omnibus Collection tour I just put out. I was a little nervous about how people would react to that video, but honestly, the response has been phenomenal, and I'm just so thankful to have such a great community where we can all enjoy talking about this hobby of ours. And today is no different, because it's time to jump into what I consider to be the best Harley Quinn story available right now. Let's go. So first things first, we have the dust jacket here to the Harleen by Stjepan Sejic hardcover. This is one of my favorite dust jackets in my entire collection, and you'll see a little bit of why that is once we go and take a look at the board. This is a hardcover, but it actually has the same height as an omnibus, but it's a little bit wider. As a matter of fact, here it is compared to the Aquaman by Jeff Johns omnibus. You can see here that it's the same height, but it does stick out a little bit more on the sides here, the width. So keep that in mind if you're planning on putting Harleen on your shelf. This is a DC Black Label book, and that means a couple of things in this instance. It does mean that the book contains some more mature themes than what you may find in a typical comic book, and the Black Label usually means that this book is a standalone story, so it kind of takes place in its own continuity, and you don't really have to worry about other stories in order to enjoy this. Here is the spine. Lovely, lovely design. Love the red on black. And the back. Behind the Painted Smile. A must-read for every fan of Harley Quinn. I definitely agree with that. We got a cover price here of $30 US, $40 Canadian. And this collects the entire 3-part miniseries, or just the entire graphic novel, Harleen. Let's have a look under the dust jacket here. And there it is. Absolute genius. Can you see now why this is one of my favorite dust jacket designs in my entire collection? Because you have Harley Quinn on the surface, but then you really see the damaged Harleen Quinzel underneath. Let's take a look at the spine here. A little bit of a different inverted color scheme here. And then the back. Similar design to the dust jacket, just missing some of the text. But all right, let's start flipping through this book, and I'll talk a little bit about why it's so brilliant. And here we go. Man, I love that board design so much. Get ready for some incredible art on the inside of this book. And lovely bookend pages too. Honestly, every bit of the design of this book, they really knocked it out of the park. Here we go. Harleen. So I don't want to go too in-depth with this book because it's relatively short and I wouldn't want to spoil any elements for you, but I will still be doing a flip through some of the pages, so beware of any story spoilers that might appear in the art. Here we go, book 1. So Harley Quinn, in my mind, has never really had a definitive origin story. I know like Mad Love is an excellent story, but it's set in the animated series, and there's still an element of goofiness to it, an element of implausibility to it. This is for people who are interested in the character and want to see a more realistic exploration of the characters and how Harleen Quinzel became Harley Quinn. This covers Harley Quinn's early years. It starts off with her years as a psychiatrist, and Harleen Quinzel here is proposing a study to develop a method of detecting a sociopath in the making so that you can detect them early on and get them the treatment that they need. But she's having trouble getting this off of the ground. Man, some gorgeous, gorgeous spread pages in here. Absolutely wonderful. Yeah, she's having trouble getting her research off the ground. Investors just aren't really taking her seriously. And eventually, Harley Quinn is caught up in the middle of an altercation between Batman and the Joker. And she starts having these horrible dreams, very bad nightmares that start to really eat away at her and torture her. It really changes her perspective on the conflict between the two. However, Lucius Fox from the Wayne Foundation gets wind of Harley's research, and he wants to offer her an opportunity to develop this research at Arkham Asylum. And that's how Harley begins working as a psychiatrist there. But interestingly enough, she arrives the same day as Joker, and that immediately gives her a huge rush of anxiety because of the nightmares and trauma she experienced so recently, and she just wants to stay away from him. But the nightmares just don't go away. They become worse and worse, and she really starts to fall apart, honestly, and develops a pretty bad drinking problem too. But eventually, she just can't ignore it any longer. She decides to review some of Joker's old interview tapes and try to take some notes on the Joker. And actually, she gets the idea that she might actually have a chance with the Joker here and further developing her research due to something that she discovers in one of those interview tape review sessions. So Harley starts to interview the Joker, but Joker, being the manipulative genius that he is, that begins right away. The Joker knows exactly how to get under her skin. Every time you think that Harley might have the upper hand, and even if she thinks she has the upper hand, it turns out that that's exactly what the Joker wants. And we, as the readers, know this. We know that she becomes manipulated and eventually becomes Harley Quinn. And you really don't want her to, and that's why it's so tragic watching Harley's downfall. Harvey Dent is involved in this story as well. He's the DA at this time, so that's also how you can tell that this takes place pretty early on in the Batman mythos. But Harvey is actually pretty against Harley's research because he just thinks that every defense lawyer is just going to use her research as an excuse to plea insanity for their defendants. But Harleen doesn't want to take no for an answer. She believes in her research, and she really thinks that she is going to be the one to finally cure the Joker. And overall, this book just does such a good job at exploring who Harley really is as a character. The obsession, the depression, the self-destructiveness, but also she really does just have good intentions. She doesn't start off as a bad person. Book 1 is more of an introduction to Harley, and it's really endearing. Book 2 is where the corruption of Harley really starts to unfold more, and it becomes a lot sadder. And then by the time we get to book 3, the final book of this story, that's just all about the downfall of Harley, and it gets quite disturbing, honestly. Like I said, we're aware of this manipulation by the Joker, and we just have to watch it unfold. There's this really interesting paradox to Harley because she wants to avoid social interaction and relationships for the most part, and yet she feels a need to be appreciated. And Joker picks up on this too, and that's the core for a lot of the manipulation that occurs. But all these struggles Harley has, it just leads to a lot of unresolved resentment and anger that she feels, and that just builds up on her struggles even more. And once again, I just want to go back to the art and talk about that for a second because it's so gorgeous. There's some really impressive spread pages in here. There is a little bit of gutter loss, unfortunately, though, because of the binding, but we'll talk about that later. But there's just some really beautiful imagery as well. like this panel, which I love so much. The way it's drawn, because Harley is talking about here how you tend, when you're walking towards the light, the downside is that you tend not to notice your own shadow. The light that you think you're traveling towards can change you, and you don't even notice it. Another really great panel here where Joker is carted into the asylum and Harley has that flashback to seeing him in that attack that she experienced a few nights ago. The Joker design in here is actually really interesting. It's not my favorite design for the Joker overall, but it totally suits this story because the way he's drawn, he's depicted as this sort of like playboy almost, and it really makes this book feel a lot like a twisted romance novel a lot of the time. But we can talk a little bit about the extras as well here. We start off here with a few variant covers in this gallery here, which again, really just show off the magnitude and magnificence of Stjepan Sejic's artwork. What's interesting too here is that we get a bit of a graphic timeline of how the story came to be, starting off as a series of comic strips, and then how Sejic got to illustrate the story here featuring Harley Quinn, and then how the Harleen story was eventually approved as a 3-part series up until its publication here. And another really interesting bit here, the process of getting the story from outlines into pages. So you'll see the outline of a piece of the story here, and then how it ended up in the book. Really interesting to see that translation. We end off with a quick bio of Stjepan Sejic here, and that is it for your extra section. For build quality, we have 208 pages in this book, and it is a glued binding, so you're not really going to have much of an eye there. It's a short book, but that glued binding does kind of impact the art sometimes. There is a decent amount of gutter loss every now and then, but the page quality is quite good, and the book lays over quite well too. Page numbers and a table of contents would have been nice, but it's such a short book, and it's just one continuous story that I don't really think it's absolutely necessary in this case. Overall, the presentation of this book really is phenomenal. But time to wrap up here with some closing thoughts. This really is, in my opinion, the definitive Harley Quinn story. If you're a fan of Harley Quinn or Joker or that whole relationship, this really is a must-read. It presents Harley Quinn's origin in a much more realistic way, but it's also a realistic exploration of the beginning of a toxic relationship and how somebody can be manipulated into one without even really noticing it. And the great thing is, there is no prior reading required for this book. I would happily and easily give this to somebody who isn't that familiar with comics. It's that good. But if you are familiar with comics, then there's plenty of references in here if you're a fan. Whether it's the Arkham criminals in here, or little things like Hugo Strange running Arkham, or the story of Harvey Dent. Lots of good stuff in here. Definitely recommend this book. But that's been my review of Harleen by Stjepan Sejic. You let me know what you thought about the book, or if you have any questions about anything, I'll be happy to have a discussion with you down below. But thank you so much for joining me today, guys. I hope to catch you in another video real soon, so you have yourself a great day. I've been Superfly Comics Guy, and until next time, you keep reading. Bye-bye, guys.